Let's go ahead and start with the first tool here, which is going to be the Move tool in Photoshop. So if you look at your toolbars on the left-hand side, the very top tool and the first tool that you will see looks like a compass, and that is the Move tool with the shortcut key V. And it says it moves a selection or a layer. Now, if we grab that tool, and let's reset this back to layer, I had changed it earlier, and we try to click and drag, nothing's going to happen because the layer has been locked down. So because this layer is locked, we actually can't move it, which is great because if we have any layers we don't want moved accidentally, we can always lock them later on. But if we double click this layer and we hit OK, it'll turn it into a normal layer, and then we have the ability to move it around. Now whenever we do this, we're going to see a little tooltip show up showing how much we have moved this document. So right now we've moved it 324 pixels on the horizontal axis and 592 pixels on the vertical axis. And if you go up higher or to the left, you can see those numbers moving around and changing there. Another thing you'll notice is you'll see a bunch of these purple lines popping up all over the place, and these are alignment guides to help align your document. Now, if there's other design elements or layers in the scene, it'll start trying to align to those elements or layers. And if there is none, it'll just try to line up the document to the workspace, the canvas. So here we have a perfectly centered document because the horizontal and vertical alignment guides are showing. So I can let go and know that that is back in the center. Now, not only can we move the layer itself, but we can also move things such as selections. So if I grab the elliptical marquee tool and I make a selection here, as long as I have that Move tool selected, I can go ahead and move that selection by clicking on it. And this is where locking your layer might be a good thing, because if we had another layer, we might accidentally grab it and move it around. But if it's locked, we're sure to grab just the selection that we want. So the Move tool will allow us to move things around like this. We can also move selections around by using the arrow keys on our keypad. And if I tap it multiple times, you can see that I can move these to the right and downwards. I can also hold the shift and it will make bigger increments of jumps whenever I'm moving this around. So you can use those in combinations with the Move tool here. So we'll go ahead and we'll just undo all of that. And then we also have some other options at the top for the Move tool. So we have the auto selection here, and basically this says automatically selects a group or layer by clicking on a visible pixel. So let's just say that we copy and paste this image here, this globe that we just made. So if we hide that background layer, you see we just had the globe here. Auto selection will allow us to be on the bottom layer, and when we select the globe and move it, it will select that layer for us. If we turn that off and we stay on the bottom layer, when we move, it's going to move the bottom layer. So auto selection will know that this globe is part of a different layer, and it will allow us to begin moving that immediately. Sometimes you'll want that, sometimes it can get frustrating and you'll want to turn it off. The other thing here is if we want to move the layer or the group that the different layers are in. So if we're at the layer level, whenever I move this, it'll move the layer that we're selecting. So let's go ahead and make a couple different selections here. So we'll copy this wall and paste it in. And then we'll copy some stuff on the desk. We'll go ahead and hit the layer button there. We'll copy and paste that. And we have these different layers here. And we're going to go ahead and group these together by hitting Control or Command G, and that creates a group. And then what happens here is if I select that Move tool and I'm on the layer level and I grab the selection, it's going to grab the individual layer. Well, let's say that I want to move the whole group. So I'm going to select group. Now I'm going to grab that again and move, but once again, it selects just that layer. Well, we can move the group by changing this from layer to group. And now when I select group, I'm going to move the group as a whole, not as individual layers. So that's what that different drop-down box means. We can change it from moving groups to moving layers. Another thing we can do is show transform controls. So just like hitting Control T, we can automatically show the controls when we're on the move tool. So when we go there, we can immediately start scaling and adjusting these, rotating them, and all the different transform methods that we know about. Then we have some alignment tools at the top. We'll talk a little bit more about alignment later on in the course, but basically we can select multiple layers and we can align them to each other. So we can center them together, we can move them both to the left or both to the top, both to the bottom, and so forth. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but basically it allows us to align layers and shapes and other things toward each other. So we'll select that again. Let's go ahead and turn off Show Transform Controls. And then after the alignment tools, we have some tools for the 3D mode whenever we begin doing any 3D work. So that is how the Move tool works. Now this is different than the Hand tool because let's go ahead and delete this whole group of information out. We have our layer. Now I can move this layer, and when I do that, it's actually changing its pixel dimensions here and where it lands. Let's say we zoom in and we use the Move tool. If we move this, it is going to actually move that image like we just saw. Now, if we want to get around the space, but we don't want to move the image, that's when we would use the Hand tool or hit the space bar. And what happens is we're moving this, it looks like we're doing the same thing. However, the Hand tool is for navigating around the document window, and the Move tool is going to actually make the movements. So we use the Hand tool, and when we back out, you can see here that nothing has been moved. So that's how we use the Move tool, and you can use the Show Transform Controls to do other things with the Move tool, such as scaling and rotating.